Hello and welcome to another Yellowfin University video. In this video, we are going to finish up the series on JavaScript charts by actually building a JavaScript chart using the Google Charts library. So the very first thing we need to do is figure out how to load the Google Charts library into Yellowfin so we can actually use it to draw our chart. That's why I'm here on the Google Charts website under Load the Charts library. So we can see here, this is our link to the library, and then we need to call these two functions here to actually draw our charts. And I have chosen to do a bar chart, so as I click on the bar chart down here, it'll take me to all kinds of neat examples of bar charts they have drawn, and it even gives you the code along with it. So we can scroll down here a little bit, and here is an entire snippet of code on how to draw this bar chart right here. So I already have the code written, but we will step through it step by step to see exactly what I did to make it work within Yellowfin to be able to fit our scheme. You can't just copy and paste this right into that Yellowfin JavaScript editor because we need to just make this code fit how JavaScript works within Yellowfin. So coming over to our Yellowfin JavaScript chart formatter here, we are on our JavaScript console, and this is the code that I use to produce my bar chart. And as you'll see, I made use of the generate chart function, the process data function, and finally the do drawing function here. Now, I had to mix things up a little bit to get the desired result. I guess when I say desired result, to get it how I wanted to code it. Obviously, there's a million ways you can code things and a million correct ways to do things. This is just how I do things. So, please forgive the messiness of the code. This is just meant to explain how we can get Google Charts to work and just in general a JavaScript chart to work within Yellowfin. So, the first thing you'll notice is I have moved this require statement from the do drawing function up to the generate chart function. So why did I do that? I did this because I wanted to use this Google Charts library in multiple functions. So instead of having the require statement in each function, I'm putting it in sort of the parent function, generate chart, so that way I can use Google within my process data function and my do drawing function without having to call the require again to bring in the Google library. And that's possible because, as you can see here, I'm calling the process data function from my generate chart function, and I'm also calling the do drawing function from within this. So that's why it's available. Kind of, look at your variable scope. So I moved that up here. I put in the Google path to their Google Charts JS file, which is going to give me access to build their charts. And I also moved that try catch function up here. So basically that whole require statement that used to live in the do drawing function is now up in the generate chart function. I had to declare air function as a variable, so that way when I pass it into my catch call the air function here, it will actually produce that little sad face and bar that says, hey, there was something wrong with the chart. Please ask your administrator what happened, for lack of better wording there. But essentially, I had to call this variable here so I can call it within my catch function. And here's that first google.charts.load and then my bar package. So I'm drawing a bar chart, and that was that first step in the load the chart library. I should say second. We've already loaded this. Now we're doing this google.charts.load. And finally, we'll do the onload callback, which is the actual drawing of the chart, which is all the way at the bottom. But before we get there, let's just explore line by line what I did. I left my debugger in. That's just for my reference. If I needed to debug anything, I could take that out now if I wanted to as things are working. This is all the same. From here down to here, I left everything the same. I'm setting the chart draw div where I want to actually draw my chart. I'm leaving the add class JS chart no overflow, which means it's not going to allow any scroll bars. Essentially, it just won't allow overflow. It won't show the overflow. Here's my height and width variables, which I use when drawing my chart to make sure my chart is dynamic. And here's the process data, and that's where I'm calling my process data down here. And finally, this is where it gets new here. Here's that onload callback from the Google website that says you have to call this and do drawing. So that's the function that you need to pass into this function. So the set onload callback requires the draw function. And so we're passing our draw function, which is called do drawing. And here's the variables I need in my do drawing. As you can see down here, data, chart div, height, width. These are the data pieces that I'm passing through, the process data, the chart draw div, the height and the width. And finally my catch, and if there's an error, produce this error function. So that's all I changed up there. It actually looks quite a bit different, I understand. I moved the require statement up there, but again, I did that so I could have that library available to me at a global scale. Moving down to process data, Google accepts data in the format of arrays of arrays. So forgive me, I forget the technical term there. It's maybe an associated array, not 100% sure. But anyways, it accepts array of arrays. So you need to set the data up that Yellowfin gives you into that format. You need to manipulate it. And that's what I'm doing here. So the first array in the array of arrays needs to be the column names. And I could call these whatever I wanted. I just chose demographic and invoice as my column names that display on the graph. And then it's just a simple for loop to go through and grab each of the values. As we scroll down the list, we're grabbing the first one, the second one, the third one, and we're building that array of arrays. And then finally, we need to return something. So we're returning google.visualization.array to data table, and here's that array that we're passing, DS. We're passing this array that we just built into this function, which puts it into whatever format Google needs to build that Google chart. So now that our data is in the correct format, all we need to do is actually call the draw chart function within Google. So you see we can do that by first setting the variable in our do drawing here. We're setting the variable chart equal to new google.charts.bar and then where we want to draw our chart. So the chart draw or to chart div, which is this variable here, and we're selecting 0, which means the first one, because what we're doing is we're using jQuery to select the chart div, and it selects all, so we just need to tell it the first one, essentially. That's why we have the 0 in there. So we're setting chart essentially equal to the drawing function of the bar chart, and then we're setting the scope of where it needs to draw it to this div. Perfect. And then here's the options. So if you go into the Google website, the Google Charts website, you'll see that you can add options such as the height and width. So I'm setting height equal to my height variable, width equal to my width variable, so that way we're dynamic. I'm setting the colors of the bars. I mean, I could change this from green to blue, whatever I wanted to change it to. I'm always a fan of steel blue. And finally, we're setting the placement of the legend, and we'll do it off to the left. That's if you want to mess with that. These are all options that you can add to your drawing. And the final thing you do is chart.draw, and then you pass in the data and the options. Those are the arguments that it takes in. And this is from Google. So if you go to the Google, let's say the bar chart, what we're doing here, you can see the functions that are required to be able to build these charts that we're looking at here. So if I scroll down here a little bit to actually find that piece of code, here it is. You can see the final thing they do. They set that var chart equal to building that bar chart, and then it's finally chart.draw the data and the options. So we are grabbing everything from Google here. This is not our function, the draw function. At this point, everything is ready to go. I can move over to preview to see what my chart looks like. And there we have it. I have a nice Google chart. And the beautiful thing is, as you hover over things, Google takes care of the nice little tool tips there on each of these. And now if I would have sorted the data before I put it into this chart, it would sort it. Let's say I wanted to sort it on the count of each or the sum of the values. I could have done that as well. I needed to handle that at my data processing step. So whichever order I put the data in when I processed it is how it's going to output to this chart. So I could have ordered it differently in the beginning, and it would have affected the ordering of this bar chart as well. But as you can see, it's that simple. I have developed the code here, and now this chart is ready to be published. So thank you for tuning in to another Yellowfin University video. This will conclude the JavaScript chart series here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our community. They'll be more than happy to answer what they can. Thanks again.